Calls are growing louder in the United Kingdom for England and Scotland to boycott the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Trump administration is pausing immigrant visa processing for 75 countries.
The promise sounded simple, almost triumphant. A celebration of humanity, of unity, of the world coming together under one sky. Soon, we were told, the United States would host the World Cup. Soon after that, the Olympics too. Two global spectacles, two moments where sport would rise above politics and borders. But as the countdown to 2026 quietly accelerates, that promise is already cracking. And what is spilling out from those cracks is fear, anger, and a question so dangerous it could tear the biggest tournament on Earth apart. What if the World Cup arrives, and Africa doesn't? The 2026 FIFA World Cup is just months away, but instead of excitement filling the air, something darker has taken hold. The buildup is no longer dominated by tactics, star players, or dream matchups. It is dominated by visa bans, travel restrictions, and political decisions that have turned football into a front line of global conflict. What should have been a celebration is now being discussed in the language of boycotts, dignity, and exclusion. In Germany, politicians are openly floating the idea of refusing to participate. In the United Kingdom, voices are growing louder, urging England and Scotland to walk away. In Africa, the conversation has become even more explosive, because this time, the exclusion feels personal, systemic, and deliberate. When South African political leader Julius Malema stood before microphones and cameras, his words cut through the noise. He warned Africans not to travel to the United States, not just for the World Cup, but at all. He said it plainly, "This is not the time, it is not safe." And behind that warning lies a reality that cannot be ignored.
It is not safe to go to America, not only during the World Cup. Any South African who had an intention to go to America, this is not the time. It is dangerous.
8 African nations have qualified for the 2026 World Cup. 8. And every single one of them is now facing travel restrictions that could prevent their fans from ever setting foot inside an American stadium. These are not rumors. These are not hypotheticals. These are policies already signed, already enforced, already reshaping what the World Cup will look like if nothing changes. When President Donald Trump announced an expansion of the U.S. travel ban, the shockwaves were immediate. 39 countries were affected, either fully or partially. Africa was hit harder than any other continent.
President Trump just announced he's expanding his travel ban to include 5 more countries and impose new limits on others.
Of the 9 African teams that earned their place on football's biggest stage, 8 now face visa barriers so severe that for ordinary fans, attending the World Cup has become almost impossible. Senegal, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Ghana, and Cape Verde all made it on sporting merit. But their supporters are being told that merit does not matter at the border. For some countries, the situation is even harsher. Haiti and Iran face complete bans. Their fans cannot enter the United States at all. Not with tickets, not with hotel bookings, not with years of savings spent on what was meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime journey. Players and official staff are exempt, yes. The teams will be allowed in, but football without fans is an empty shell. The people who sing, who cry, who turn concrete stadiums into living, breathing monuments to identity and hope, those people are being told they are not welcome. In other cases, the barriers are more subtle but just as effective. Limited visa access, vague explanations about diplomatic tensions, bond requirements of up to $15,000, a sum that exceeds the total cost of travel, accommodation, and tickets combined. And through it all, one message is repeated over and over by U.S. authorities. A World Cup ticket does not guarantee entry. Visa approval is a separate process, one that can be denied at any time for any reason. On paper, officials insist these measures target immigration, not tourism. In reality, African fans are being rejected, delayed, or priced out of attending.
Now we have been put in a political space, which is not our space as footballers, and it's a very difficult issue for me to say.
They watch European supporters breeze through visa waiver programs, while they face interrogations, paperwork, and costs designed to discourage them from even trying. The contrast is impossible to ignore, and so is the message it sends. The World Cup is being hosted in a country that does not want black and brown people crossing its borders, even for football. That is why this is no longer about sport. Africa is done being told to smile, to participate quietly, to be grateful for inclusion, while the rules are bent against it at every turn. These restrictions landed at a moment when the continent is asserting itself like never before. Western military bases are being pushed out of the Sahel. New trade alliances are forming outside traditional financial systems. African leaders are openly challenging structures that kept their nations dependent on external approval for decades. Against that backdrop, watching African fans locked out of the World Cup feels less like an accident and more like an insult. The images were jarring. FIFA President Gianni Infantino standing next to Donald Trump, smiling for photographs, while African supporters realize they might never see their teams play in person. That kind of humiliation does not fade quietly. It hardens. And the responses are already coming. Julius Malema called on South Africa to withdraw entirely, drawing a direct comparison between U.S. visa policies and apartheid-era restrictions. He reminded the world that sports boycotts were once used to isolate South Africa itself. If that tactic was justified then, he asked, why should it not apply now? His words echoed across the continent. Claude Leroy, a legendary figure in African football who coached multiple national teams, publicly questioned whether Africa should call for a boycott. Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter went even further, urging fans to stay away from U.S. matches altogether, arguing that attendance would mean endorsing a political climate that marginalizes people based on where they were born.
In a post today on X, Sepp Blatter quoted in an interview as saying, "For the fans, there is only one piece of advice: stay away from the USA."
Even in Europe, discomfort is spreading. British lawmakers tabled motions urging sporting bodies to reconsider the United States as a host. German sports officials are openly debating their options. Iran has already threatened to boycott official events after its delegates were denied visas.
Iran has announced it is boycotting the event in Washington. The United States has denied visas to several of their top football officials.
Officially, no African federation has withdrawn. CAF has not issued a statement calling for a boycott. But silence in this context is not neutrality. Behind closed doors, conversations are happening that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Coordinated withdrawal, collective leverage, the possibility of Africa as a bloc refusing to play along. The stakes could not be higher. The 2026 World Cup is projected to generate more than $17 billion for the U.S. economy. FIFA expects record-breaking revenue from sponsors, broadcasters, and ticket sales. Africa walking away would shatter the tournament's claim to global inclusivity. Sponsors would face immediate backlash for associating with an event that excluded an entire continent. Broadcasters would demand refunds or renegotiations. Viewership across Africa, one of football's most passionate markets, would vanish overnight. But the damage would go deeper than money. The World Cup sells itself as a celebration of unity, a rare moment when the world comes together on equal terms. That narrative collapses the moment fans are excluded based on nationality. FIFA has spent years expanding the tournament to include more teams from Africa, Asia, and South America, branding itself as progressive and inclusive. All of that branding disintegrates if African supporters are treated as security threats while others walk in freely. Other regions are watching closely. If wealthy nations can host global events while selectively excluding people they deem undesirable, that precedent will not stop with football. It becomes a template, a tool, something to be used again and again until international cooperation becomes conditional, transactional, and hollow. And yet, the decision is not simple. Players have dreamed their entire lives of playing at a World Cup. Football associations rely on tournament revenue to fund grassroots development. Walking away carries real costs with no guarantee of political victory. Some argue that pressure, not withdrawal, is the smarter play. That when the spotlight intensifies, host nations soften, that the World Cup changes a country, even temporarily, that Trump and his administration will mellow when the world arrives. That belief is shared by many who have seen World Cups before. Germany, South Korea. Moments when nations knew the entire planet was watching and adjusted their behavior accordingly.
Quite a few. I've been to Germany, I've been to South Korea. When the World Cup happens, the whole mood in a country often changes. The country itself knows that the whole spotlight is on them.
From that perspective, telling fans to stay home feels like surrendering an experience that may never come again. A World Cup does not wait. Qualification is never guaranteed. For many supporters, this might be their only chance. And so Africa stands at a crossroads. One path leads to participation despite the restrictions, sending teams while fans watch from afar, hoping conditions improve. The other path leads to a statement so powerful it would shake global sport to its core. A refusal to accept humiliation. A declaration that dignity matters more than prestige. The countdown to June 2026 is ticking. FIFA is scrambling. Governments are calculating. Fans are waiting. No one knows yet whether African teams will take the field or whether the tournament will begin with empty slots and unanswered questions. What is certain is this: this is no longer just about football. It is about who gets to belong, who gets to celebrate, and who is told to stay out. History is watching, and when the opening whistle of the 2026 World Cup finally blows, the world will see not just who is playing, but who is left behind, and what that absence says about the future of global sport.